Wow, Dr. Billy Garvey, first time we've done a three-part series on any topic. This one on changing behaviours. It's technically our second part of our reflection episode. There was so much involved. What are people going to learn in this week's episode?
Yeah, some kids that are really struggling with toddler behaviours. The biting is here. Some teenagers that are having a bit of a tough time as well. Some reflection from parents that are struggling. Some beautiful advice that's come through and feedback. I think it was a good one, hopefully.
I loved it. The specifics and actionable stuff here. There are common questions here that I don't think, and particularly in the first 12, if I'll give you a guarantee on this one, Billy. If after the first 12 questions you can't relate to one of them as a parent or a carer as a GP, as a common thing you get, you don't have to listen to the rest of it. That's my lock. Put my lock on this one because there is a lot of common ones in that first batch, and I think you'll want to listen to the whole thing. But that's my litmus test.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nick.
Enjoy, guys.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician.
And I'm Nick, a developing parent.
We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids.
This is Pop Culture Parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you today?
I'm good. All the better for hearing you compare me to a professional athlete.
I don't know about that, Dr. Billy Garvey. You did feel pretty good about that.
Well, it's really important, parents and otherwise, hear compliments about specific things they're making an effort.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
how are you?
I'm good. No, I'm good. We're back. We're back. We're back for part 3.
Part 3, yes.
I've never done a part 3.
No, let's see how it's received. I'm sure people are really missing the movie analysis and breakdown.
Yep.
So promise that we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Or next episode. But yeah, how's your fortnight been?
Good. I'm into my first batch of school holidays as we speak. So thrilled to wrap up the first term and take a little bit of breather.
Yeah.
Reload and go again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, you're a parent of a school kid now.
I know, yeah. Hectic.
It's wild.
It is, really is. It was kind of, everyone goes, it can be tough, but yeah, parts of it were a lot tougher than we thought. So everything, just the scheduling, the 5-minute precision. Just wait for this, Dr. Billy. It's not something that you're prepared for. You know, I felt like school is like one of those ones like when you first have kids and they don't tell you about a bunch of stuff. And then you get there and you go,
He'll learn it.
Yeah, it's this 5-minute drop zone, which daycare does not have. Daycare, you're like, drop them at 8, drop them at 9, pick them up at 4, pick them up at 5:30, whatever goes.
Yeah,
School is not that, Billy.
Yeah.
And the windows are short. Anyway.
Yeah,
I'm trying to hear about this.
I'm trying to think of a movie analogy. But yeah, and
drop zone.
Yeah, drop zone.
Wesley. Back-to-back Wesley.
Yeah. We got to see each other since the last episode. I think we both had our Griswolds within a day of the last
When did we see each other? It's all a blur.
At your joint. Spoiler alert, hospital visit. But we'll talk about it next. It's been crazy couple of weeks. Annalise did her first triathlon and that was amazing. I felt like I did a triathlon running around with the kids to the viewing bits. And lots of talks, which has been amazing. We were talking about it. Yeah, I've got 2 today. So we're doing this.
You hate talking.
Hate it. Reluctantly. Can twist my arm into
appearing in front of people in public.
Yeah.
It's so rare. It's
I know.
selfless.
I know. I'm very, very introverted and shy. But yeah. So no, it'd be awesome. Talk at lunchtime about how to support with clinicians, about how to support kids, unsettled babies and help families with that stuff. And then clinic again, and then a talk this evening about neurodiversity and mental illness and co-regulation and stuff. So
Send them a few apps. There's 3 apps right there.
There is 3 apps right there.
There's 6 apps right there.
Yes. Thank you to everyone for sharing this stuff. But
Yep.
Part 3.
Part 3 of changing behaviours. So never done a part 3, but inundated with questions. So we thought we'd do a second reflection episode, hence making it part 3.
Yeah, because it's quite funny. You said to me, like, mate, we've got the questions. Let's record early. And then classic me last night, frantically trying to pick which ones would make the cut. Brought Annalise in on it after she'd done all of the housework. Said, can you help me choose these questions?
Hey babe, do you want to unwind with some more work?
Yeah. So it's great, but hopefully some really good ones that we'll get to have a good chat about.
Cool. All right, Billy, let's get into the shorts. We've got 12 shorts, and then we're going to go into some longs and some complimentary notes from people. No, actually, people's wins lows. That's a better way of
Yeah, then end on some beautiful feedback.
Okay, Billy, you ready? I love this opener. How do I maintain calm when nothing about them is, and how to not snap when your 7-year-old talks back, usually when you're asking them to stop?
What have you got?
Nothing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, so...
check yourself first. I know that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that it?
Yeah, how do you do that, though? What's the practical... People love how you make me actually explain it practically.
Yeah,
and then
it's
ask
a good
you
one.
Different for everyone. What's your move?
Well, I just started trying to catch myself a bit earlier, but I don't know. I just sort of take a breath.
Yep.
Oh, I had one on the weekend. I won't go into the detail because it's boring, but yeah, had that one. Take a breath, realise that if I blow up back at them, it's just going to make it worse. That's what I try to think about.
Yeah.
It always does. But I don't have how do I do that though?
So, yeah, what we're talking about is self-regulation. So everyone is a bit different about it. I try and pick up, like when I'm stressed, like it's happened last night, when I'm just stressed, and I try and not think about the kind of how angry I am or frustrated or tired or whatever. I try and think about what's going on in my body. So that's what I do for me, and noticing that, like, I'm really tense. I'm kind of tensing my muscles. I'm kind of, my jaw's jutting out a bit. I kind of have all these signals in my body, and I just try and find calm. I also really, really, really drop expectations. So last night there was, there was 5 minutes of Shrek that just happened because I was like, cool, I just need kind of a couple of minutes.
What's 5 minutes of Shrek?
The movie. As in,
right.
I was just, Evie was just struggling to pick any of the choices I was giving her. And so...
Great framing.
And so she threw out an option and I went, you know what? That works for me, which is going to come up.
So I'm curious just on that one. So you conceded. Like, that's hard for a lot of parents. But like, well, isn't that going to cause a problem further down the line with her where you've like given up?
Great question. So that was an execution of what's called Plan B, which is I've just got to get a bit more opportunity to come back to calm here.
Yep.
And I can't do that if I'm also trying to get a 2.5-year-old into the bath with an 8-month-old in my arms and a border collie jumping up on me. So I went, you know what? I just need a bit of space. And it worked. It was really good. And it's funny, like I think a lot of the time we're in situations where we can't find that space, and that's where I get stuck. But if I've got it, it's I think we get into the habit of like, nah, just now. It has to happen now. And what that does is dysregulates us and the kid. Okay. So that's why when we can, often the plan A is a bit of space, bit of calm, drop to their level. This is all if you're calm yourself, drop to their level, give them a bit of space and just connect with them. And then most of the time, after a couple of minutes, they'll go to where you want them to go, or they'll be able to be guided. Cool. But it's hard. It's hard when it's real pressure. That's why the pressure points are often the last time kids get good at stuff.
Yep. Okay, cool. All right, I like that. Don't mind it. Okay. Hey, Billy, how to best support autistic children with repetitive, challenging behaviours?
Amazing question. We got a lot of questions like this. So we're always trying to figure out why, and there's some clues in this. We should do it on a long because it deserves more than a short or a whole ep. So there's 2 big reasons that we think about kind of repetitive behaviours, and especially if kids with diagnoses like autism. One is pure joy, and that's how they really have excitement. And they can be repetitive, but often even in, every child that we see in clinic, what we're trying to see is in a play-based activity, are they expanding, being creative, enjoying it, exploring their environment, doing all those things? Sometimes with a lot of kids, repetitive behaviours are a safe haven. So they kind of shut down their world a bit. They're struggling with the external things that are happening, and they go, I'm just going to focus on doing this thing over and over again because it helps me avoid the difficult sensations that I'm experiencing about the rest of the world.
So would that be like gaming? A kid that just wants to be on gaming and tech?
Yeah, definitely. But we're
be?
Totally. But we're talking a little bit more about kind of really specific repetitive behaviours, such as like hand flapping, spinning a car wheel. Yeah, even just, squeezing something over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're trying to think is what is the experience? But often when they're shutting down the outside world, we have to be careful that it's not because the child's really struggling. And we also need to make sure that we don't look at those repetitive behaviours and go, this needs to stop, without thinking about why. When we do think that's a bit destructive because they're biting themselves or they're damaging something, what we want to do is acknowledge that they might be really stressed and dysregulating, and how can we give them a similar behaviour that has lots of focus and helps them kind of not be distressed by the external things that are happening.
What might that be?
So even your one was really good about something where it's got muscle tension and release, which is like squeezing stuff. Like a lot of kids really benefit from that, like sensory elements. And the occupational therapists are amazing in this space at thinking about where do kids sensory seek and where do they sensory avoid. And so the sensory seeking stuff can be really helpful for those kids about what is their sensory preferences. You know, they like certain textures, they like certain sounds, they like certain visual things, and often guiding them towards their preference activities or sensory components of the world can be really helpful about moving away from things that are more destructive.
Okay.
But we could do a whole episode just on that.
Mini. Okay, Billy, how to encourage more verbal communication instead of squealing and screaming for a 6-year-old and 3-year-old?
What have you got for this one? It's pretty close to you.
Yeah, no, I should have an answer. But if I didn't...
Let's pretend I don't know what the answer to that is.
Oh, God, it's annoying. It's frustrating when it's that squealing and screaming. Had it a bit a couple months ago for about 3 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With my youngest. And they just yell. And it was kind of like, I always just was like, I don't know if you prescribed it. I prescribe a lot to like, there's a leap going on here. I just try to write it. I'm like,
Just a leap.
She's been leaping now for 3 months. She's really bounding now. I just think that like they're just going through something, and I think in that particular case she was kind of finding her voice, or realising that she gets the attention she wants. So I don't know, try and make a bit of connection before it gets to squealing and screaming. But if it's not excited, if it's like we'd just be sitting at the table and she'd just launch and I'd be like, everyone was like, oh, truth, love.
Yeah, this is wrong.
Yeah. Really just like literally finding her voice, I felt like. But I don't know. If that's the kind of instance.
Well, it's beautiful because what you're doing is you're reflecting on what might be going on. And if you can do that in the moment, that's really impressive.
I can't, yeah.
But, you know, we've got to remember like when it's distress and they're fighting or it's conflict or they're upset.
You've missed the opportunity to go in there and do it.
Yeah,
earlier.
if they're really dysregulated. But if they're still like just low level, like an Evie does this lots, where low level she just starts escalating. And we'll do that stuff.
Yeah.
Then I've got to remember, and we've got a couple of questions like this, what do I want her to be doing instead? And it can't be like, I want her to be...
stop.
I can't tell her to stop, but I also can't expect her to like meditate,
Why not?
articulate perfectly to me. Yeah, well, because I can't do that. No. So if a man who was recently in his late 30s can't do that...
Wasn't that recent, mate?
then it's very unfair to ask a 2.5-year-old too.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just about how do we build their capacity in lower level intensity times, or where there's more support available to build that skill that we want them to build. And those kids, it's like, how do we get you really good at expressing calmly or softly or in a way that I can understand what you really want in this moment, how I can help, all those things, but doing it. But when it's like ultimate pressure point and everyone's screaming, you're just like, cool, plan B.
Plan B, a lot of plan Bs. Love it.
It's been a plan B for you.
Yep. Plan B. Hey, Billy, how do I give an alley-oop to my child how do I give an alley-oop to my kid to seek validation from peers and not parents?
Yeah, lots of lots of questions like this, and it's one of the challenges of teenagers, and especially kids in the second half of primary school, as their peers start being a greater influence. The trick here is, and we talk about this a little bit, but just to touch on it again, try and be around them lots. So try and create an environment where you are the parent that is a part of scaffolding opportunities for both of them, and you have to do it passively because teenagers are really sensitive to like you going, I'm coming to the movies too. Or,
Hey, what up, cool kids?
Yeah, hey kids, let's go shoot some hoops. So you just want to scaffold opportunities for them. So how do you set it up? And the trick is like create environments where it goes right back to our risk-taking thing, you know, safe enough. But so there is a risk element, but you do have some observation or ability to monitor it. We didn't talk about that too much, but
It's kind of like your mum that used to have the house that everyone would come over to.
yeah. So she
Is that
was
kind of like a broad approach? Where you're like, try and create a place where kids want to come, at least so then they're there and you can kind of keep an eye.
So yeah, that's the reason that's really beautiful. Like, because it's easy for you to do that now, but you've got to invest in it now that you develop relationships with, you know, which you are with your kids' friends' parents, so that you can then kind of say, you can have conversations, you get an idea of how they're going when they're at their house. But yeah, you can watch them and see how they're going, and you can be like, oh, Freddie's really struggling with sharing. And you can be like, I need to scaffold opportunities and build her narrative so then I can give her an alley-oop when, you know, her friends come over and go, we're going to practice this before they get here and then we're going to do it really well. The teenager, you just can't be that involved because they won't let you be that involved. So what you want to do is just scaffold opportunities for them to get better at the thing they're struggling with, such as peer pressure, you know, such as not being able to resolve conflict with their mates, things like that.
Yeah. Sorry, it just takes me back to my youth as a teenager. I had a mate whose parents used to have that. So the room that we do the recording in is this small little bungalow thing. And they whacked a pool table in it, and we used to live in that thing.
Yeah.
And we, you know, carry on teenagers and whatever, but we got really good at pool because we were always there.
Yeah.
And, it just reminds me a lot of this room that we're in. It would have been, I kid you not, this size. This was it. And we used to
beautiful.
live in it.
Yeah, amazing. So imagine.
Shout out. He's a listener of the podcast, mate. Who it is, he loves it.
Yeah, beautiful. But yeah, it's a good example, isn't it, of like you're not going to be able to be sitting in the room watching them play pool all the time, but you'll kind of be able to invest a little bit in how they're going, their relationships and their social development.
Yeah. They used to pop in and we'd say good day and we were polite. It was good. Hey, Billy. My son has autism and PDA.
Pathological demand avoidance.
Okay.
It just means that, we should talk about it in a separate episode, but they really struggle with being told what to do. It's a bit unfair to kind of simplify it like that, but they have a lot of difficulty responding to guidance and cues.
Okay. It's okay to make it simple like that to understand, Billy. Just for this question, it's fine, mate. Hey, Billy, my son has autism and PDA. How do I guide him when he just pushes back on everything?
Yeah, great question. So I learnt this in childcare actually, and I try it often in clinic and stuff like that.
When you were caring in childcare.
Yeah, sorry, not when I was.
I was about to say, wow, so early development.
When I was 7, I realised. So yeah, you've got to. It's a bit of a simple analogy, but you've got to stand next to them or run with them and then turn them. And a lot of kids just have a hypersensitivity to conflict. You're challenging who I am, you're taking away my authority, you're taking away my autonomy. And that's a lot of those kids where, for lots of different reasons, they have a greater vulnerability to those, you know, typical strategies not working or feeling like they're not being seen and heard. And so the trick is, how do I go with you? It was beautiful yesterday. I was in clinic and I was hearing about this kid who's really struggling from one of the fellows. And lots of tough stuff going on at home, like, you know, child protection and all this stuff. And the kid, I think, was like 8 or 9. And I went in to meet him, and I didn't do it on purpose, but I just walked in there and I was like, hey, mate, how you going? And I was just like really excited to see him because I was just in a really good mood. It was really funny because he came down, I just sat in a chair, and he crossed the room and sat right next to me and just looked at his mum, the fellow, and his little brother and little sister. And it was really beautiful because then I got heard about everything, but I could kind of, you know, shift the narrative slightly about he's struggling with that as opposed to he's really stuffing this stuff up. But there's this beautiful opportunity at the end where this mum's amazing. And I was like, before I left, I was like, he was just like looking up at me, doughy-eyed, everything I was saying. And I was like, he's got this beautiful warmth to him, doesn't he? And you could see Mum just relax. And she was like, yeah, he does. And it was, who knows if it made it scratch a difference. But it was more just this beautiful opportunity to prioritise that first before I even got anywhere near what we should do to change his behaviours.
I loved that. Stand next to them, run with them, and then turn them.
Yeah, and he actually did that to me. I sat in the opposite side of the room to him, but there was something about the way that I entered that room and lit up when I saw him that he wanted to come and sit next to me. Like, never met me before. And so it was one of the highlights it was the highlight of my day that day, because it was just this kid who's really struggling. He's come to a service. You imagine what it's like that you come to a big tertiary hospital, intimidating place. We're coming here because you're naughty, all that stuff. We're going to talk to a stranger about how naughty you are and how we fix you and all this stuff. And it's not a criticism of the mum or any of the people that are referred, but it's just this amazing, beautiful opportunity to just be like, cool, I'm on the same side as you. You know, and that's what we've got to do with all the kids that we support, whether we're parents or professionals, is like, my role is I'm on the same side as you. And that's kind of, that's the best answer that I can give in a short way for that short question, because it's really common. Favourite kids to see in clinic.
Awesome question. Hey, Billy, how do I change behaviours in babies under 12 months old?
Yeah, it's great. Such a good question. This was one that I really wanted to include, and one of the reasons that part 2 or part 3 happened.
I'm assuming this is linked to sleep. I don't know. I don't want to say this person might have something more complex, but I'm like, is it sleep?
Yeah, it's probably sleep or some stuff they're doing. The important thing is that little babies, so we're talking about kind of the second 6 months of the first year of life here. The first 6 months, there's, little babies are soaking up a lot of stuff, but they just have very limited control over purposeful behaviours. But in the second 6 months, they've really started to learn what back and forward interactions look like. And what I would say is that, you do whatever you need, the plan B stuff, but the most important part about that first year is it's their greatest time to soak up attachment opportunities. And so when you're having difficult behaviours, what I would say is just try as hard as you can to interact with them and be 100% present with them. And then one thing that's really helpful for bubs, especially in that second 6 months, is to kind of copy them and mimic them, because that imitation is a really powerful way that they connect with people. It's this unique thing that happens. We don't do that much. We do it a little bit, like you and I. If we're really trying to connect, or we really are connecting, we'll shift our body position together and things like that. And that's imitation that's kind of subconscious. But little babies, and you test it with them, you can even just stick your tongue out and watch when they do it, and that means they're 100% like connecting and present with you. And then you can shift them towards behaviours that you want them to do, even like co-regulating with them from that age of just, I'm calm, I'm blowing bubbles, I'm blowing on your face, I'm kissing your belly, all of that stuff. And then you can guide them, because what they're seeing is this is a warm, genuine, fun interaction, as opposed to, I'm just screaming because you're trying to change my nappy, doing all of that stuff. So how, you're amazing at this.
I want to go grab Charlie now. He's inside. Charlie, 8 months, 9 months?
8 months, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I hope I'm right. Every time we say his age, Annalise is like, no, he's not.
You did say 2.5 for Evie before. She's 3 next month.
I know, it's scary.
I had to correct you. Billy, I've got one more short. Oh, sorry. Oh, notes. What are you doing? Sorry, they jump around. Hey, I've got 2 more shorts. Short questions. 3-year-old is getting embarrassed very quickly when praised. How can we praise him safely?
Any of the girls like this?
Oh, yeah, they go back. I don't think they know how to deal with praise, but I think like as adults, sometimes, like I don't know. I know I like praise, but sometimes I get like, oh.
Yeah.
So what do you...
So the 3-year-old, like in the older kids that are doing that, you need to just think about, is there a bit of vulnerability in their self-esteem? I think we've got along about this. I can't remember if I included it now. It was like midnight when I last looked, when I finished them. But there was, so what the teenagers really struggle with is when they get compliments or praise, it has to be wrong, because that's not how I feel about myself. And so that's why sometimes they can become awkward or shy or anything. The 3-year-old, it's unlikely that that's the cause. It's usually just kids who struggle with the attention being on them and the focus being on them, as opposed to the praise. It's not the praise, it's the focus in a lot of kids. And the trick is that, when do they struggle with it? When it's because strangers are around, less worrying. there's more than just parents around, or if it's like when it's just us and they really struggle, just kind of thinking about, all right, it's just maybe a bit intense for them, and how can I have lower level intensity reinforcement? And so what I mean is, instead of being like, Evie, you're so amazing because you brushed your teeth, you kind of just more subtle in the way that you reinforce it, and kind of just, you know, making sure you're happy, you're engaging, you're supporting them and all that stuff. But the most important thing in that is that don't keep overpraising them, because what they're showing you is that they're struggling with it a little bit. And that's a good example of leading, you know, letting the kids lead us and being like, they're a bit, you know, overwhelmed by all this positive stuff that's happening. I'm just going to tone it down a bit.
I went pretty hard on the praise when my daughter finished 2 Weet-Bix and a glass of milk this morning. So
Yeah, but she probably loved it though.
She loved it, yeah.
Yeah. Evie's like that. Evie, if it's just us, Evie loves it. If I've got other people around, like especially people she doesn't know, and I make a big song and dance to something she's done, she withdraws.
Gotcha.
So that's why I don't do that much. Do you know what I mean? That's her
Yep.
level of discomfort and her tolerance threshold of lots of attention being on her. Once she's warmed up with them, she loves it. Like, but she just takes time. So I don't pressure her and be like, no, every time a stranger's around, I'm just going to praise you heaps and you've got to get good at it. That's not going to happen and it's not necessary. So it's not a worrying sign in a kid that young though.
Cool, Billy. Hey, going to move into some longs now, starting with some positive feedback from a listener.
Amazing.
Hi, Nick and Billy, developing parent of 3 girls, 13, 11 and 8. God. I was waiting to catch up before sending through a relevant question, but today I was listening to Forrest Gump ep. Our eldest daughter, 13, is a different kid. Today, I delivered our middle daughter to primary school late, dentist appointment. Had a lovely interaction with our primary school principal. He regularly asks how our oldest daughter is, even though she's now in year 8. I am so moved by this care and his wish to see her thrive. In listening to the pod, I was inspired to send him a text thanking him for his ongoing cheerleading for her. Might seem like a small thing to share, but I wanted to share. Thank you for inspiring a beautiful text message exchange today. Thanks for everything you do. Love the pod and really love the movie connections. My husband and I met while working at a cinema. So we have that shared love when choosing their middle names for movie inspiration. Even choose the middle name. Wow.
I know. Rocky and Ripley. I know what it was.
Rocky and Ripley are great.
What was the amazing girl's name out of
Terminator's a beautiful girl.
Yeah. Remember the amazing
Sloane Peterson.
Sloane, yes, Sloane.
Yeah,
What a name. Yeah, great. The reason that I made the cut is just how good. It was very good.
Thank you.
How good it is to recognise the important role that educators play in cheerleading for our kids.
huge role.
So yeah, we should be patting our educators on the back more and just specifically praising all they do for us.
Beautiful. Another one. Hey, Billy, after hearing your intro about the dad tradies on site listening to your pod, I sent the Groundhog Day episode to my husband for him to understand the PERMA concept, which has changed my mindset as a stay-at-home mum. I told him you guys were chill, so as not to put too much pressure on him to listen. Hope he does. Thanks for all your amazing work you both do. Enjoy the new enjoying the ep so far.
Yeah, amazing. It's great to hear the Forrest Gump episode because every so often we get messages from people that are like, I just listened to the neurodiversity one, it's amazing, and all that stuff, which is really cool because I just completely forget about them. But beautiful as well because she's like, it's changed the way I feel about a stay-at-home mum, the PERMA concept, and it made me, I was like, I wonder what she means by that. And then I thought about it and I'm like,
What is it?
Well, there is these amazing things that, you know, if you have the guidance of PERMA or whatever it is to be like, how do I get the most out of this opportunity I have of engaging with my kid every day and all that stuff? It's the most important role we can play. Like, I'm sure you're the same. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd struggle if I was at home with Evie and Charlie every day. Like, I love what I do, all of those things. But it's beautiful. A part about that episode is it can guide you on specific things you can do to really elevate kids. And so it was really cool. And then I've had to laugh when I said you chill. I was like, Nick is.
I have brief moments. Hey, Billy, we're getting into longs now. Hey, good morning, Dr. Billy and Nick. Please feel free to skip past this email if it's just simply too late to enter the conversation. I have just listened to your episode on Changing Behaviours Reflection Part 1, and I have a question about the wonderful story you read at the end. How can you make sense of a child like my 8-year-old son, who has the motorbike, one-on-one time and connection like the boy in the story desired, yet has zero gratitude and cannot see how lucky he is? He will make the most hurtful remarks about how hard he has it and make life around him so difficult. He self-sabotages on the daily basis, like saying rude and off-putting comments during nighttime cuddles and goodnight routine, which turns us parents away earlier than we, and I'm sure he would like. He has exactly what made the boy in the story happy and yet feels so hard done by. He's so complex that he wishes to be Ronaldo on the soccer field, yet stands on the field doing absolutely nothing. I'm not exaggerating. In fact, he either scratches his bottom or stares at the sun, puts in zero time practicing at home, and at the end of the game, he will tell you he did okay, when in reality, he didn't participate in the game. The same scenario for swimming, schooling, motocross. In summary, my question is, where do you look? Where do you look when on the surface you're ticking all the boxes and yet your child still won't thrive? Your podcast is my parenting North Star.
Yeah, amazing. I just thought it was beautiful because it was like a reflection on a reflection. So, yeah, which is the strongest.
It's like Inception. Really.
Yeah, it was a comment on a comment. But, yeah, I think it's really important that the first part of the answer to that question is just that parent's doing a phenomenal job in a really tough spot. The second bit is the way that we help kids understand what our emotions are and our feelings about those tough spots is we have to start with validating theirs and trying to have a shared understanding of what they're going through, even if we think it's wrong, unfair, cruel, hurtful, anything like that. And from a very young age, we can do that with kids, and we'll talk about biting later. But when we try and connect, we have to start at, I want to have your perspective. I think some of the time we jump to, I want you to understand how I'm feeling about this first. And the problem is we've missed the essential step of I'm going to role model how to understand the perspective or feelings of someone else. Does that make sense? So, if you're struggling with one of the girls, the temptation is like, that really hurts me what you've just said. Or, I really need to get this done. I've just made this meal for you. I can't believe, those type of things. The trick is to say, I think this is what's going on for you, but you do it in an open way that they can feel comfortable to correct it. You don't say, I can tell you're really angry or you're really tired. You can say, I think this might be what's happening, and try and do it in a calm, open way that tries to, open up the conversation, them expressing their feelings. Then once you've done that, what you want to say is, that really hurts me, because I really look forward to lying down with you every evening. But every time we get to this point and we start, yelling at each other or you say hurtful things, it's this really exciting thing I was looking forward to, and now I'm hurt. And I'm feeling bad and I'm feeling sad. And you don't then want them to say sorry or want them to correct it or fix it. The step is you're just trying to get them to understand what your experience is because of their behaviours. But you do it in an open way that we're both trying to get better at this and learn about it.
Understand. Okay, yeah.
The other thing about that question is the kid, we had lots of questions. I was telling you, so many questions about little kids that are delusional is too strong a word, but, really kind of not performing at their best in certain things like sports.
But they think they're performing really strongly?
Or can't understand it, don't try at home, all of that stuff. It's just a stretch too far at the moment. So what I would want to know if I met that kid in clinic is, does he have success in other things that he makes an effort towards? Now, if he does, it's just that the getting on the soccer field and performing, if that matters to him, is beyond him. There's some element that he's overwhelmed or he's not invested in it. If he doesn't have success somewhere else, find that first. He's got to have specific things that he cares about that he succeeds at. And that goes back to PERMA and the accomplishment bit of PERMA. And a lot of kids just get used to, I don't succeed at anything, so I don't try.
Damn. Gotcha.
And so, you probably can think about Freddie with this. Does she see success frequently in the activities that she attempts and tries? And she doesn't need to succeed all the time, but that's how you kind of get her to elevate and try with things that are a little bit beyond her. But if she's never felt that success and only failure, why would she try? So it's just a risk in this kid in that story that he's kind of getting used to it not paying off, so that's why he's not trying.
Okay. I'm going to come back and listen to this one.
Thank you.
This is only the first one. Well done. No, I love that.
First time I'll re-listen to it.
Get out of it. Hey, Billy and Nick, after hearing... Oh, sorry. Oh, went back up, sorry. Hiya, Kelly from the UK here. I was about to say top of the morning too. That's Irish. Sorry. Just read the questions, mate. Read the script.
There goes all our Irish listeners.
Sorry. Hey, Kelly from the UK here. I've only just found you guys, so hopping around all over the place with the episodes, trying to absorb all the essentials first. I have 2 boys, 5 and 3, beautiful, adorable guys. I have a beautiful husband who tries his best. He's a secondary school head of department, so works hard and cuts every day short to get home to see his boys before bed. He wants to make an impact even though he only has about half an hour or so. And usually this means wrestling. A part of me thinks it's gorgeous and joyful, but another part worries about the violent element. The other day my boys were playing together and their play involved boxing. They put socks on their hands and essentially started to beat the crap out of each other. I put a stop to it when I realised what they were doing. But I should mention that they were both really enjoying the game. I worry my husband's rough and tumble is promoting fighting, but don't know how to speak to him about it.
What do you think?
Oh, shit, Billy. I did this yesterday. So yesterday morning in bed at 6 a.m, I had an out-and-out tussle with my daughter. She went off to daycare, and the first time in 4 years of daycare between both my daughters, I got pulled up at the end of the day and the teacher said, she's just hit someone. And I went, far out. And I was like, what happened? She goes, she was just being excited and playing rough. And I was like, it was so, we had such a rough play in the morning.
She did this move where she threw a sock across the room and then did the people's elbow.
I'm not joking. So I can relate. I need an answer to this because then I was like, all right, that's on me. We were playing a bit rough and I said in front of her and she was embarrassed, my daughter. And I felt bad. She's like, can we just go? And I was like...
So you don't stop doing it. Okay. Is the key. Don't stop wrestling. Don't stop doing that stuff. Same with his dad. So what you want to do is, when is this appropriate? What do we do first? We make sure both people are happy to do it. How do we tell both of us are still enjoying it? Stop during it. Am I still happy to keep going? Are you still happy to keep going? Hang on a sec. I hurt myself. Just pause. See on my face, I'm getting a bit stressed. All of those things. So what you're trying to teach them is, what are the rules around that?
Gotcha.
When is it appropriate? How do we set it up? How do we notice that someone's not enjoying it? All of those things. It's not, we'll just never do it. The other thing is that it's a really beautiful way of engaging with kids, is contact and play and fun and celebrating them and all of that beautiful stuff. It's like got heaps of touch in it. Yep. It's got heaps of like reactions and fun and all that stuff. But it's actually a really good opportunity to elevate kids in their ability to understand how something's going for someone else. Because it's much harder to do that if you're crafting together. Do you know what I mean? Crafting together is great, but it's much more kind of solo activity that there's not a lot of reciprocity, like back and forward in it. Whereas there's few things that are like wrestling that have like a back and forward in it, really intense interaction between two people. But that's the trick. And so it's not stop doing it with Ronnie. It's go keep doing it with Ronnie, but give her guidance around it. Go, this is when we do it. We check first, all of those things.
Hey, Billy, why is wrestling so damn fun with the kids?
Well, I think it goes back to all those things. We all have this like desire to kind of physically connect with people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's this beautiful part about all of our relationships, which we should talk about more in the future. But I think men are pretty hopeless at this. Do you know what I mean? We're not very, we've been taught by society that we shouldn't contact each other much, like physically contact each other much. And I think having little kids gives us a chance to go back to that. I think that's why so many dads love the wrestling with the little kids. You know what I mean? Because it gives them this outlet of physicality and bouncing around and all of that stuff, because we don't get to do that much. And you do, but because you do BJJ. but yeah, so I don't think stop doing it. I just think put some structure around it, some guidance, all those things we talked about.
Easy. Thank you. I'll use those tips. Hey, Billy and Nick, I'm a GP and struggled yesterday while seeing a teenager whose parents want him to stop vaping. The parents are very strict, punishing him, going through his room and giving him a hard time about it. The mum was frankly terrifying, and I was too scared to suggest that her focus on the negative behaviour could actually reinforce it. what would be a positive behaviour that I could have suggested that the parents focus on instead?
Yeah.
Question. What a ripper.
Yeah, amazing. So amazing question. So let's do what GPs do first, and then let's do what parents do first. It's similar, but there's an extra step in the GP. So kick the parents out of the room. So kick the parents out of the room and just say, I just want to talk to Nick. And you actually don't talk about vaping. So what you talk to Nick about is what he likes, what he's good at, all the stuff we talked about. But you're doing it really purposefully in this instance because what you're trying to find is a hook. So you want to try and find something, say it's gym. Say it's, they're starting to have relationships with, their peers, intimate relationships, whatever it is. And then you want to think about, when have I got to the point where this kid trusts me and respects my opinion on something? And then once again, you don't say, I want you to stop vaping. What you're trying to find is, why would he stop vaping? Why would he want to do it? He's not going to want to do it for the reason you want him to do it or his parents want him to do it, but why would he want to do it? Fitness, relationships, health bit, the cash, saving up for something else, really good point. But that's what we understand about motivational interviewing. A strategy is much more likely to be effective if the reason and the actual way that it's going to happen is something that the person who needs to do it comes up with. So does that make sense?
Nice.
Instead of we know this about quitting smoking and lots of different things like this that are really tough. Where is it? There's a whole thing about decreasing opportunities, and the temptation element of it and all those things. But the first step for lots of these kids that have behaviours that we wish they weren't doing is connecting with them and then finding a reason why they wouldn't do it and then how they think is the best way to approach it. But you don't start with, I want you to stop vaping. Then the trick is you bring the parents back into the room and ideally talk to them without the kid there and just say, hey, this seems to matter to him. This is kind of our motivational interviewing perspective that we have on this stuff. Also find a reason for the parents. What's the hook? Try and find something that they're doing really well and connecting with the kid on. And then go, just like you connect with them about this, I want you to connect with them about the fitness stuff, about the saving money stuff, about the what other stuff, and subtly try and introduce the strategy that he's come up with that's going to push back against the vaping.
Nice.
So tough. The parents, obviously the GP step doesn't exist, but it's just connect with them, what matters to them, what's the purpose, and then subtly think about how can I guide them towards a strategy that gives them the outcome they want that pushes the vaping out. So it's always something instead. It's always something instead. It's not stop doing something, it's something instead. From toddlers to teens.
Something instead.
Yeah. Whether it's, hitting other kids, not sharing, risk-taking, wagging school, whatever it is, what can I get them doing instead?
Replace the behaviour. Okay. Come on, Billy.
Thank you.
I'm re-listening to that one too.
We both re-listened to all of them to get the highlights.
I know. So we do re-listen to it, but it's not one and done. Hey, Nick and Billy, I absolutely love your podcast. You have both helped me immensely in being a parent. My son is 8 years old. For the past 2.5 years, just after the birth of his brother, he's been having terrible meltdowns regularly. We have managed to work out some triggers and are getting there after using many of your suggestions. I also feel terrible as I suffered quite a bit bad postnatal depression. He resorts to violence as soon as everything gets too much. He tries to kick his brother and hurt me. I try to get my toddler away when this is happening, but I also don't want to leave my son when he's screaming and throwing things at us. My husband is at breaking point and is very down about it all. Sometimes I just don't know how to break the cycle of him lashing out physically when things don't go his way. Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, amazing.
Oof.
So yeah, I completely understand the perspective of I feel bad because I had quite bad postnatal depression. So I don't want to not validate that experience, but obviously it's no one's fault. Just as any illness that we have.
Yeah.
And it makes it really hard. The interesting thing about postnatal depression is that we know it really challenges attachment. The beautiful thing about attachment is it's a false belief that you get this tiny window to build secure attachment. And as I've probably said before, we should do a whole app on attachment. But a lot of teenagers I meet in clinic, the priority is attachment.
Yes.
So it's not something that, just for the first 18 months or 3 years. So that's why, a lot of kids will struggle to form secure bonds of attachment with primary caregivers that are going through things like postnatal depression. So it's just about thinking about how do I come back to that. I really struggle with this though. So I went through a window last week where Evie was having a really tough time, and I knew why. And it was a really good lesson for me in clinic, actually. I spoke to my team about this. She kept poking Charlie in his left eye. So, one time I got home, I'd done a huge day at work. I knew Annalise was hours away, so wasn't going to be able to help me. Roll in, Evie's had a good day. I get there. I'm not kidding, 6 times in half an hour she poked him in the eye. Oh. I was like, I've got to keep Charlie away. And she kept going, I promise I won't. So she wanted to help me make dinner. So I poked him in the eye straight away again. I was like just boiling because I was like, he's got all these cuts over his eye and around his eye. And I'm really struggling with it. And I fell into the trap of being like, stop doing that. Don't do it. I had them both in the bath. It was this beautiful moment. I had them both in the bath and she did it again. It was the 7th time. I pulled her out of the bath, wrapped her up in a towel, sat her on my lap, and just held her and was like trying to co-regulate back down with her because she was distressed. And it was working. She was coming back down with me. And I said, I'm going to put you back in the bath and we're going to play with Charlie well. And she goes, don't put me back in, I'll poke him in the eye again. And I was just like, isn't that amazing that she realises it's wrong but knows that if she goes back in there, she'll do it again, which is phenomenal. The thing is, I also realised, because she's helped me, that just because she knows that doesn't mean she won't be able to do it. It's too tough. Now, the answer wasn't in stopping her doing it. I had to obviously keep Charlie safe and all those things and realise I was overwhelmed. But it was because she just wasn't getting enough time with her mum. And we've seen that the little opportunities we have to once again build that back up has paid off hugely because she's not doing it anymore. She hasn't done it since. Because we just had a chat about it that night and went, cool, you and Evie need to lean into each other more. You need to spend more quality time with her, and it's not more time. It's just the quality and intensity, enjoyment in that time. And I swear to God, she hasn't poked him in the eye since. And it's not because I said, no, stop doing it or anything like that. So it's kind of how can we prioritise what's going on? And for this mum and older child, I suspect it will be just connecting. Quality time, rich time together and all that stuff, and it will pay off.
Okay. Come on. Hi, Nick and Billy. Amazing podcast. Thank you. I'm feeling lost with how I can best support my son's challenging behaviour and would love your advice. He's a toddler, so everyone shrugs it off. However, sadly, my son is a little boy snatching toys out of other kids' hands. He can be lots of fun, but can also act like a bully. He pushes and hits other kids sometimes, and his younger sister all the time. He's almost 3 and goes to daycare. I wonder if he has ADHD and struggles with impulse control. My husband and I have always tried to be the best parents we can by showing him lots of love and being responsive, caring, encouraging good behaviours. I'm worried he's going to be a bully and I feel ashamed when he acts like this. I'm losing my patience and wonder if he needs us to be more assertive and strict with boundaries. And any advice would be so appreciated. Thank you so much.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Oh, tough.
Did you go through that window with either of the girls?
Nah, never. I had internally we'd have scraps at home, but never, haven't had touch wood, haven't had that kind of couldn't put my kid in a setting. I've been in some parts of parenting, you're like, oh, I'm blessed, I'm lucky I can do that. Other parts bloody sleeping, all this sort of stuff had horrible regressions, but that I can generally put my kids down. They play pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it is hard because I know friends that have gone through this stuff and it's really hard, and boys are more vulnerable to it because they just don't have the same developmental trajectory in their language skills is one of the big reasons. So they're not very good at expressing what their needs are compared to girls. And the hardest thing about this is that often we fall into the trap of being punitive or having the consequence, where there's no skill development in a consequence. It's not that you should never have a consequence for any behaviours, but they won't get better at it because of the consequence. So the trick is, how do I give them more skills in expressing what they're struggling with in that moment and then actually guide them? So the classic example is the kid who really snatches everything, pushes other kids around or whatever. You've just got to come in and watch them closer and then say, this is how good we are at waiting turns. This is how we say, can I play with that next, please? Whatever it is. We're doing this with Evie a lot because from a social learning theory perspective, she observed a lot of kids snatching stuff off her. And so she started snatching a lot off Charlie and other kids because she was like, That kid wanted the ball. He just come up and took it off me. I've learned if I want the ball, I just come up and take it off that kid. Yep. What we have to understand is that from a social learning theory and cognitive skill development perspective, the two highest levels of behavioural change and learning that we talked about in the first step, we need to overpower the negative influences that are occurring in these kids' environments. Okay. So understanding we can't really change how much they're seeing other kids, especially if we're not there in things like daycare and kinder. But what we can do is go, I need to invest a lot of my time, as much as I can, in showing them the pro-social behaviour that I want them doing. Does that make sense? Mm. And it's not when they're snatching it. When they're snatching it, you can do a little bit of stuff of we're going to come back and give it to them, but we'll talk more about biting. What the powerful thing to do is when the negative behaviours occur. Yep. But a lot of the effort is in what's the specific thing that they're struggling with, waiting their turn. You know, and we don't understand that, you know, it's not empathy. We're not trying to give this kid empathy. We're trying to give them pro-social skills that are more specific than that are developmentally appropriate, like just being able to wait their turn, being able to ask, can they play with something, those type of things. Especially in that young age group, it's just simple behaviours that you want, not perspective taking, nothing like that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a real challenge, and the kid's not going to be turning out to be a bully because we've got a parents listening to a parenting podcast. You just want to talk about everyone about them and say, like, how do you think they're going? What are some consistent responses that we can put in place? How can we guide this kid? How can we give them opportunities where there's a lot of scaffolding and support in place, where a parent is within arm's reach, another adult or caregiver is within arm's reach, and we can guide them in one-on-one, not when there's 5 kids there, not when it's the end of the day, not when they've just had a hard morning, but when they've got their most capacity. How can we guide them to the pro-social behaviours we want them doing? And then how do we specifically reinforce it and praise it and build it into a narrative?
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay, Billy. Our strong-willed 2.5-year-old son has been showing some pretty feisty behaviour of late, definitely testing our boundaries and our patience. He demonstrates awesome language development and strong comprehension skills, so much that he's been moved up to pre-kindy room at childcare 6 months earlier than he can, so he can be with kids that are on his level. This also happened from nursery to toddler room. We think this is great and are very proud of his language and communication abilities. However, when asked to do something simple and familiar, he, 8 out of 10 times, will answer back, want to negotiate everything, and make things very, very difficult and take so much longer than it should. Most of the time, there has to be a reward to get him to do the most basic things. E.g., if you get in the car, you can have ... Very rarely is it a simple, okay. We don't want him to become totally submissive and not able to speak his mind or stand up for himself in the future, so very cautious of how we approach this. However, we also don't want him to feel everything in life is negotiable. How can we encourage him to do things just for simply doing them and not to be getting something physical, e.g. food or toy, out of it all the time and without the back and forth negotiations? Thank you so much for the work you do, guys. I'm so glad I found your podcast.
You got anything? Do you experience this? I'll do it if I get that thing.
I do negotiate. I can't say I don't. I don't avoid that.
How do you decide when you negotiate and when you don't?
When it's important, I don't know. Oh, shit. I don't think
this happens all the time. I've seen you.
I just do it. I do it.
But how do you pick? How do you pick when they start challenging it or asking for stuff or negotiating? And how do you pick when you're like,
if they're really digging their heels in, I just negotiate.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think about it. I'm in the moment, Billy. I don't know. I'm trying to think about how I actually do it. I'm trying to think of an example in my head where I do it.
Yeah, what's in the last couple of days? Can you think of anything where the girls have been like, nah, or I'll only do it if you do this, or I want to stay up longer, or give me more of that thing, or I don't want to do that thing, and you get trapped in like...
I do it a lot I actually do it a lot at night, to be honest. I'm like, they're like, I want a marshmallow. I'm like, well, I want a bath out of you, mate. So how's that sound? They come to the table, we look at each other, she goes, don't mind these terms of agreement. Mum writes it up and we get going.
Yeah. It's great. Evie's just started doing that as well. Like she's making deals. She says, let's make a deal about stuff. And then we'll pinky promise because, it's just been Easter and she wanted an Easter egg before dinner. And I was like, I didn't know the pinky promise was happening. And she's like, I want an egg first before dinner. I was like, this is going to stuff up dinner. But I was like, I'm going to give her an opportunity here to have some autonomy.
Yep.
And I was like, cool, but we have to eat dinner. And she's like, okay, deal, pinky promise. And I'm like, I've never seen her do this.
Well, this is what I do. Yeah. Okay. So how does this parent not have to do this 24/7?
Yeah, great. So I'm going to read out an answer off social media. So I can't reply to all the comments, and another clip has just gone viral. But there's a beautiful comment that came through. So the emails are amazing. Everything gets read, as we've said. But I just want to read out this phenomenal answer that a person gave to something I talked about. Pick your battles. Some things aren't worth the stress it causes you. With my 3 boys, all 2 years apart, because of twins, so this person is an expert, I keep reminding myself how I felt when my parents became dictators because I said so. Beautiful reflection. What was it like when my parents just said, bad luck, it's happening? And tried to reason out every conflicting situation with them. If something is an absolute no, they need to know why. Beautiful. If it's a hard no, don't just say because I said so or just I said no or whatever. Try and help the kid understand why it's a hard no. Why do you have to go to bed now? Why do you have to have a bath? Why do you need to do those things? And genuinely, what's the reason? Not just because, well, that's just how we do it. Because it helps us get ready for bed, because it keeps you healthy and strong, whatever it is, and you help build that in them. If it's not an absolute, negotiate an acceptable middle and allow them to make mistakes, learning opportunities. If Evie didn't eat at dinner, I wasn't going to come down hard on her and say, you pinky promised. I'd just say, hey, we didn't do what we planned, but that's okay. We'll have another shot next time. And be there to pick up the pieces when it doesn't work. Kids have opinions and points of view, and we should enjoy helping them navigate through growing up and forming their own set of values, even if they're different from our own. Amazing. So what we've talked about a lot. That person summarised probably 5 hours of me talking more succinctly into a single comment on social media.
Who is that person? Are they looking for my job?
But it's beautiful because we have to understand that what we're trying to give them, which is how this beautiful question is framed, is I don't want them to not have a voice. I don't want them to not be able to negotiate. I want them to understand. And so we don't try and force our beliefs and perspectives and reasoning on kids. We help them to understand what ours is and then support them in their own navigation of that, knowing they're going to fail at it. You know, it's a really important point, and I just thought it was better than I could have answered it.
It's an amazing answer.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that Matt Damon movie, the Zoo movie. Have you seen that one? There's this meme flying around the internet. It's like, when I want my kid to do this, and it's like, it's a good dream. It's your dream. Yes, but it's a good dream. So, have you seen that one?
No, but I totally
really
understand.
good.
I've seen little bits of that movie. I don't think it'll be on the
This
pod
is your
anytime
dream,
soon.
Dad. He goes, yes, but it's a good dream.
Yeah, totally. But it is an important point, isn't it? Because I think sometimes we get stuck in like, I want you to have the same values as me. You know, this is why we do this thing. But we've got to be careful that we're not like, yeah, but maybe that doesn't matter to our kid. You know,
Yeah.
like healthy vegetables is a classic example of that. They can't conceptualize it.
That person's very good.
They are.
They are very good. Don't know who they are. I'm going to go find that comment.
Yeah.
Very good. Hey, Billy. Yes, and a fist pump from me. Not going to lie, that was my reaction when I saw the podcast this week. It was perfect timing and the perfect movie for my basketball-loving 12-year-old son. My son has just started high school, and from the very beginning, I've had phone calls multiple times a week for his challenging behaviours. This isn't new, as it was almost a weekly occurrence for us for the last few months of primary school as well. Generally, the calls are for ongoing smallish behaviour, answering back, disrupting others, chewing gum in class. However, 4 weeks into Year 7, he was suspended for fighting. The fight came about after a laptop was thrown over the balcony at school and hit him in the head. The child who had thrown approached him the next morning, and with the encouragement of older boys in years 8 and 9, a fight ensued. He did not know the child previously, but he is also in Year 7. It really hit home what you said about social learning theory and cultural observation, because although not my reaction, almost every person I told, male or female, including his dad, said something along the lines of, someone did that to me, I'd want to whack him too. Just to clarify, Dad didn't actually say this to my son, but no one seemed to think it was the wrong reaction. The fight was filmed and had over hundreds of kids watching, so there's also an element of peer pressure and so wanting to fit in, which, like you said, like you touched on, is a very like you also touched on, he is very motivated to fit in. The other child is also tall, so I think part of it was seeing who was the top dog. Upon returning to school after the suspension, the older boys tried to get them to fight again with a couple of hundred kids on the oval. Luckily this time my older 15-year-old son was there and took him away. My son is 178 centimetres tall and athletic. He plays rep basketball. He was taller than all of his teachers in primary school. He's very confident, can find friends anywhere we go, and has no problem telling adults, including teachers, what he thinks. Our go-to, probably like lots of other parents, is to take away his mobile, his gaming console. We've also limited his contact with his friends outside of school and basketball. This week, after another phone call and physical issue at school, this time fun fighting amongst a group of friends, his dad threatened to take everything he has to look forward to away, including rep basketball. I don't agree with this, as at basketball he's a different child. He's in his element, respectful, listens, and happy to get up for training at 5:30 a.m. As soon as taking this away was mentioned, he became more defiant, proclaiming he no longer liked basketball anyway. My issues are that he sees no problems with the small ongoing behaviours at school and he thinks that it's justified in the fight. He does not seem to want to change at all, and any suggestion seems to fall on deaf ears, or he agrees but then once among his peer group doesn't follow through. So how do you get him to see changing his behaviour is a positive thing? And how do we go about this without the traditional punishments, i.e. grounding, removal of tech, as this is not working? Not that I expect it to, but end up at a loss about what will actually work. Thank you so much for reading this, and thank you for your podcast. I'm waiting with bated breath for part 2. Oh.
So, yeah, an amazing question. So I got a phone call yesterday from a mum, a single mum who's got lots of hard stuff going on. And the admin guys were like, she wants to talk about how the incident where she was bashed. This is a teenage girl with autism and intellectual disability. And I knew that this had happened to her last year. So I was like, it'll be something they need a report from me or something.
The teenager got bashed.
Yeah. So I called mum up and said, hey, how you going? She's amazing, one of my favourite parents. And I was like, how are you going? And she was really distraught. And I'm like, what's going on? Because I was like, this happened like 9 months ago and I just thought they needed something from me about it. And she's like, she got bashed again. It was filmed. It was put on social media. 4 girls beat her up. It was a really big deal. And it's this awful thing that's happening at the moment from like a peer pressure perspective. It's a big, social contagion thing we're seeing where like this parent, you're struggling with these reinforcers of this antisocial behaviour because all the peers are trying to navigate through this and they're saying, I will prove my status by doing this. I will share it. It'll increase my popularity and my position in the community. It's harrowing. You and I didn't have to grow up with this, and parents are having to navigate this stuff now where there's these things that make these behaviours even more likely when there's a lack of scaffolding, guidance and support and leadership in these communities. Now, it's not a criticism of the school, but this shouldn't be happening in a school community. The school community should be doing the opposite about guiding them, about how we actually do treat each other and why we believe in those principles, how we selected them and role modelling it. Like we talked about in the bullying episode, a lot of it is through storytelling. It's not about having a poster on the wall that says we don't bully. It's about having stories that talk about what the experience is of having that happen. The other vulnerability in this kid is his identity is caught up in this. I've got a gorgeous younger brother, one of the most loving, smartest guys that I know. He's huge and he's got red hair and he grew up in a rough town and he used to get picked out of a crowd to be the person I proved myself by fighting and beating up. He got really good at fighting. It destroyed, his self-esteem. It made him really threat seek all the time because he always was getting into fights and everything. And this kid is a teenager. He should not be trying to prove himself by being the biggest, most intimidating, best at fighting. I completely understand people are saying, well, I would have done that too. But it's not really true, is it? If someone, assaults you in the street or throws something at you, you're not going to go and fight them, are you? Because you worry about the consequences. I might get really hurt. There might be something that happens. I've got my kids with me, whatever. So we need to find better solutions for that kid. And what the ideal one is help seeking. Help seeking and saying, this just happened to me. And then everyone can deal with it as a community and he can have support, not figuring it out on his own. It's beautiful how the 15-year-old came in. It's my favourite bit of that whole story. 15-year-old comes in and pulls him out of there. Imagine how hard that would have been, watching hundreds of kids stand around your little brother trying to get into a fight. I've been in that situation. It's awful. I did not pull my little brother out of there. I was a teenager as well, but not as good as that 15-year-old. The other thing is that there's an element of this kid where the only place he seems to be consistently on the same page is the basketball team. So school, it sounds like there's lots of conflict, and when challenged, the relationship, especially with his dad, also becomes one of battle. What we've got to remember is this is not an experience that this kid deserves or his fault, and what we've got to think about is how do we problem solve this together? I see lots of teenagers, especially boys, that are like this. The only person they respect is the footy coach or the basketball coach or that one teacher. There's a real vulnerability in kids that go through with that attitude because then they get into the workforce and they don't like their boss and they lose their job. Or they meet someone in the street and have an interaction with them and they don't respect them. And so they fail then. They fail because they have conflict, antisocial behaviour, interactions that are negative and impact their future in a negative way. So what we've got to do is give kids the ability to understand that you actually need to treat everyone like that. And not because of how they'll treat you back, but because that's a part of your identity. You respect everyone. You're a leader in that way. This is, a big part of who you are. You're really good at this. This kid is caught up in, I'm the biggest guy. I want to be the top dog. I'm going to prove it. All my community is challenging me to prove it by all surrounding me during a fight. That kid can't overcome that on his own. The entire community, and it can't just be the parents either, needs to come around him and show him that's not a realistic expectation for anyone to have to meet. And also, how do you guide him through it that helps seeks and builds another part of his identity that actually is really good at other elements of him. And he will have other strengths. It won't just be that he's the toughest or the biggest or the best at basketball, but highlight those because, finally, on this rant, what happens if he hurts himself and he can't play basketball for 6 months? His identity will be shattered. You know what I mean? He won't get that positive reinforcement telling him he's good. What if he stuffs up and loses the grand final in basketball? Do you know what I mean? It'll shatter every part of him. So yeah, he can't be too tied to it. But it's a really big thing that's going on at the moment. And I completely agree. There's a bit of a debate going on one of our posts, and it's really healthy because people are being really respectful of each other's opinions. But I don't think it's completely on families for the kids that are running around the community at the moment, kind of stealing, assaulting people and all that stuff. It's on all of us. And I 100% believe that. And no family can be held accountable for that on their own. So I think that's my opinion. I meet lots of these kids in clinic, and the answer is not different parenting.
Yeah, try harder. Yeah.
Because often these parents are overwhelmed, not because of anything they've done wrong. They've had multi-generational trauma themselves. They've had all of experience. They've got less capacity, and we should be coming in around them, not accusing them of being the reason that this kid is doing all these things. So yeah, tough stuff.
Tough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, okay, cool.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant.
No, you're right. Hello, lovely humans. Huge fan. Yep, I said it, a fan. Since listening to your podcast, I've found I'm more calm and I suppose prepared for situations with my two children. I have an almost 2.5-year-old boy and a 5-month-old girl. Absolute lights of my life. I love being a mum, but gosh, it comes with its challenges. I'm laying here at 10 p.m. pondering the day's situation, knowing I'll likely have a few wakes with the baby and an early rise with the toddler, but I just can't seem to find the answers for a situation we're struggling with our toddler. I am really, really hoping you guys can help us. Our son has been biting kids at daycare lately. It happened in the past, but when he was much younger. He's recently started doing it again, and I believe it seems to happen right before a big language burst, so to speak. We had a call from the educator today who expressed he had 2 incidents of biting today, apparently unprovoked, but one was with a girl that is non-verbal and she couldn't tell him to stop. This breaks my heart and I feel so deeply for these kids and their families. I want to apologise, but also feel this awkwardness about apologising for a child's behaviour when they're being a child. Our son apparently doesn't show any remorse or empathy towards these kids after the event and often just stares blankly and will continue doing something else. Is he even at the stage of fully grasping empathy or remorse? The incidents have been over other kids using playground equipment before him. Today he was just standing around the sensory tray with other kids and just bit one. So I'm questioning if it's a personal space thing. Basically, we have figured out what seems to be triggering him. He certainly is able to tell mum and dad, no, stop, sometimes even shh. I'm conscious of the fact that he only changed to this daycare 1 month ago. He's still adjusting to gaining a little sister. He's also the youngest out of his peers. Most of his peers are closer to turning 3. I'm sure this is just a phase and it too shall pass, but what can we do to assist him in not biting? Where should we go from here? And please tell me my son will learn empathy eventually. I've had conversations with the educators at length about wanting to work with them and support them in guiding their son and basically let them know I'm on their side. Big cheers.
What do you think? That's the one. There was dozens and dozens of questions about biting, but that's the one.
Biting, yeah. I don't think, I'm just thinking back to the wrestling and the hitting, and I don't think it's that. This feels biting, because biting you're not doing as a family, what are you, is it the same approach? I don't know. No.
Yeah.
It's a hard no, though, as well. Like, this is one of those ones where it's like it's a non-negotiable no. No one bites. There's no playing in biting.
Yeah.
What do you do?
What's there playing in it similar to biting?
Wrestling?
No. What do you do? What are you
Feeding?
Yeah, what do you do with little kids and little babies with your mouth?
Don't know.
You kiss them, you
kiss.
pretend to bite them, you pretend to eat them.
Oh, I do
and
pretend to eat them.
That's a lot of social learning theory.
Yeah, I do that a
So
lot.
it's not because you did it perfectly that your girls didn't take that and go, this is how I interact with other people, but it's one of the big reasons that kids will bite in this age because they don't understand the difference. They just go, Mummy and Daddy do this with me when they're excited. They have fun. They put their mouth on me and kiss me and bite me and pretend to eat me. So that is a social learning theory perspective that we see in biting in a lot of young kids. It's not the only reason.
Okay.
So there's lots of different reasons kids will bite. This one made it because she mentions almost all of them. So there is a communication component of it. Kids who are a little bit slow in their language development, especially compared to peers around them, don't have the ability to say, hey, get out of my space, you're frustrating me or whatever, or signalling that they want help and support or attention. And they've found that from a classical conditioning perspective, when I do this, immediately there's a response. An involuntary response from people around me. The other kid moves away, the adult comes in and helps, I get my needs met, people notice me, whatever it is. So there's a communication perspective as well from biting. There's also a sensory perspective in it, and the therapists who are listening probably caught the bit where he just randomly bought a kid when he was next to the sensory tray.
Yeah.
So a big part of exploring the world, especially in the first few years of life, is through our mouth and our tastes and biting things and all of that stuff. And so there's even some amazing evidence about you can reduce the incidence of biting in daycare and kinder settings by putting a lot of different textures in the foods and things that the kids can bite. So crunchy foods, chewy foods, all of that stuff will reduce the incidence of biting because kids are just exploring that component of their sensory world. And so this kid is probably sitting next to the sensory tray going, there's all these sensory things going on. One of the biggest sensory components of my life is my mouth, and just leans over and bites someone. So there's lots of different reasons, and I could riff on
ticking some boxes.
A few more of them. Yeah, the other big one is teething. So it's a way to relieve the pain. So kids that are teething will often bite everything, including other people, because they're trying to relieve the pain that they're experiencing of tooth eruption. So thinking about that as well, how do I make sure if the kid is teething, they have options that are better, as in inanimate objects, chew toys, to chew instead of people. Now, the trick is, the vulnerability is in kids that bite is they'll be socially isolated. So especially the kids that the reason is a communication one, or they're not developmentally at the same level, is that they will further stall because the other kids avoid them. So that's why we need to do a lot of what's called shadowing. We need to really support those kids and be right on top of them and catch them before they're going to bite and guide them towards it. Now, when the biting has occurred, this is really important. What all we are expecting for the kid to understand is what has happened from the perspective of the other kid, not fix it, say sorry, don't do it again. And from about 2 years of age, kids can pick up that facial expression. So can you see they're upset? It's really hurt them. Not say sorry, not make you feel guilty, not make you feel shame.
How do you not make them feel guilty?
So you don't come down on them. You're not angry about it. You're not assertive. You're not telling them, no, I can't believe you did that. Yelling, getting tense, all those things are likely to make them feel shame about what's happened, when in reality, a lot of the reasons we've talked about were not aggressive. Even if they are aggressive, what we want them to pick up is that hurt the other child, and that's the experience they've had. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The trick is that the other thing is it's a really good opportunity for the kids that are over 2 just to show them what we do when that happens. We go and care for that kid. You know, we
writing notes.
Yeah, we show them that they need help. And how do we provide care? So that's the next step. Can you see they're really sad because that hurt them? What do we do when that's happened? We provide care and we attend to them. So then the focus shifts mainly onto the other kid. You don't stay on the other kid, because then you might unintentionally keep reinforcing it, because they go, this awful thing has happened and I get care and support provided to me. So it's not consequence, come down on them. No, it's also not I abandon you or I punish you. It's we're going to now care for this other child because of what's happened to them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the kind of, it's way too long for us to use as a highlight, but that's the biting bit that came through so much.
Yeah.
As people have done their PhDs on this. It's like, it's so common, but it's
so
just thinking
common.
about what's the reason, what's my response. It's not punishment.
All those reasons made sense.
Yeah. It's really common, really common. It's not a sign. This kid, the final bit which they asked about, they will 100% develop empathy. And this kid at this age, especially when they're completely distressed, does not have the ability to completely comprehend empathy. That's years later. And even, a kid that's not dysregulated, it's years later.
Okay. Last question, Billy, and then a quick reflection. Hey, guys, I just wondered, and maybe you've covered this, but I only listened to the episode my husband directs me to.
I thought that was so good that the dad is like, listen to this.
That's the win. How do you deal with 2-year-old boundary testing without just constantly saying, no, about everything? We're constantly getting mad over silly power struggles like, hey, don't stand on the plant. Kid stands on the plant. Hey, mate, I asked you not to do that. Let's stand over here. Kid walks across the plant again. Hey, come on. That's a good plant. We want it to grow and be healthy. Kid stands looking thoughtfully, then jumps on the plant ferociously. Parent gets pretty mad and takes kid inside as a natural consequence. Kid goes bananas. Parent feels like a dick. Kid is still mad. Just keep grinding through and trying to set boundaries. Keep kids safe. Is it okay to say no heaps? I hear myself sometimes and don't love it.
Great question. Can't relate to that one, can you?
Oh, no. That is...
There's maybe a day every month where I can't.
Oh, there's the detail of that. Stand there, don't do that. No. Well, inside, nanas. Happens so frigging quick, Billy.
Yeah. Does it work? That strategy?
No, it only works if they're in danger or in harm's way. Is when you... Sorry, whip them out. Sorry, it's very early. We start recording very early. I'm not yawning because I'm bored. It's early in the morning. I haven't had a coffee.
No, I'll be tighter on my answers.
No, I mean, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work because I don't kind of learn anything when you remove them from the environment, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't work because I know it's kind of punitive and all that sort of stuff. And
What else doesn't work?
You're not directing them towards a behaviour you want them to do.
And when can you do that? You do it when they're standing on the plant?
No, it's hard then.
Yeah. Why is it hard then?
I don't know.
Why is it hard for the kid then when they're standing on the plant?
Because we already destroyed it? I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're already
what?
gone.
You've passed. You've missed the moment.
Yeah. And why is it hard for the dad to guide to the behaviour when they're standing on the plant?
Because he's pissed off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
Yeah, he's just pissed off.
Totally. And the reason the analyst and I chuckled when I read this one out to her last night, because Evie did this. One of our beautiful friends, you and me, one of our close mates, got us a present. Like, we love plants, and and it took ages for all the bulbs to come out. And we just, like, Evie plucked 90% of them off. And I was just like, it's taking a year for them to grow. They're like these bright red balls that are hanging off the plant. And I was just like, don't do that. No, this classic thing. And just almost, in an assassin mode, she just snuck all the rest of them off without me watching. And I was like, God. And so this was a big issue for us. And I made the same mistake that this parent made. And no, you don't have to grind and completely doing it. The big overwhelming message in the answer to this is we should, as very little as possible, and not aiming for perfect, but not battle our kids on stuff. And once you get into that back and forward battle, it's not working. So just go, this is plan B. This is not a lesson. I'm battling.
Yeah, because no one wins. If you win... What's that one?
Yeah, the negative coercion cycle.
Yeah, negative coercion cycle. Like, you win, but you don't really win.
Yeah, so if you do something like a consequence where you come down on them or threaten them and they stop doing it, you go, cool, that worked. And then that becomes more likely to be the next thing that you do. Yeah. Which is not what we want. It's battling. It's not problem solving together. If the kid just keeps jumping on it and you just go, you know what, I'm not going to fight you on it, and you walk away, the kid just learns, if I just keep going and push him to his limit, he'll eventually give up. That is not what we want our kids to learn. Okay. The trick is that how do I give them the ability and recognise this is something specifically. Now, you can be like, for us, we had to, because it was really pissing me off, the plant thing. Yeah. And so what I did is we did play around how we care about plants. And how we look after them, not when she's pulling all the bulbs off or jumping on them. In different parts of our activity. Now, she still occasionally struggles with this. Evie, for anyone who's around with her, knows this. She just loves throwing dirt in her hair and her face all over the place. She's, a bit atypical like that. Like, she just loves all that stuff. It's in the garden, it's pouring rain. And so she just pulls all the soil out of all the pot plants. But we're still working on it, but it is getting better, because what we're guiding her is on the specific way that we care for plants and we look after them and how good she is at it. And it's this really enjoyable, rich moment of where she engages with us. I don't engage with her heavily when she's pulling all the dirt out of the pot plants or plucking the bulbs off. The problem is when I did that initially, it reinforced that behaviour. And she went, this is a big deal. Didn't understand why it mattered, didn't realise what was a bad thing to do, just went, this is a big deal, so I'm going to keep doing it. And that's what happens. That's why the kid then starts jumping on the plant and everything, because he's like, hang on a second, when I interact with this plant, Dad's emotions get really big. And they're getting bigger the more I do it, and bigger, and then you get into the battle. And then you get into one of us has got to win, because the kid then picks up as a conflict and is trying to be the victor. It's not what we should be doing. But that's the answer, not keep grinding. You don't have to keep grinding. So much of this podcast is about the alternative to keep grinding. If you feel like parenting is hard, it shouldn't feel hard all the time. And the balance should be that it's positive and enjoyable. If it's not, reach out, get help, do all the stuff. It's not just don't accept. It's like a lot of things in life. You shouldn't just accept that that's a negative thing. Relationships should elevate us. Kids should bring us joy. We should feel good about ourselves, a high, secure level of self-esteem, all of that stuff. That's a big part of this podcast, just trying to build that in kids so that they don't end up as adults that just go, life sucks, this is just how it is. Yep. So we're trying to build the skills and understanding to actually achieve that goal, reach our potential, live rich and meaningful lives, all of that stuff. So, yeah, that's my answer to that one.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Hey, Billy, I've got an end reflection here from a listener.
Beautiful.
Probably a fan. Drinking around bathwater over here. Dr. Nick and Billy, just wanted to send a quick note to thank you for featuring my email at the end of last week's episode. For the first time in a very long time, I felt heard, validated and acknowledged as not only a parent, but as a person. I can never thank you enough. The sting of being turned away from countless psychologists, therapists, specialists as your daughter is too complex and I'm not adequately equipped, or all I can say is good luck and I hope you have a good marriage, takes its toll over time. You begin to feel isolated, scared and inadequate, but hearing you today in those short few minutes was like a beacon of light, a crack in a dark cave. Please, Dr. Billy, please consider an episode on the topic of ODD.
Oppositional defiant disorder.
it really is such a difficult and lonely parenting experience. One that, I'm sure, I am not the only one trying my best to navigate through. We no longer socialise. We can't have anyone over to our home and vacations. Gosh, no, too risky. There's so little help out there. Where we live is a 2-year waiting list to even get on a waiting list to anyone who can help. I know your insight and guidance would be so helpful to those of us who need to hear that we aren't terrible parents and we are all just trying our best to show up and not break down. Anyway, I really just wanted to thank you both from the bottom of my heart. You truly have no idea how much it meant to me. Those of us who hang on your every word, thank you for what you do. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I got emotional reading that. And I was like, whenever I read that stuff, it's like, yep, the podcast is going to keep going. Let it drown me.
It's not the riches and the...
no, it's the photoshops. no, but it's amazing. What a powerful thing to end on. The community is the most powerful bit about this. It's been elevated and shared by all of you. We read all the reviews. They're amazing. Like, thank you for sending it in and thank you for sharing this. And it's a beautiful way that we can all be in this together and we'll be stronger because of it. A lot of the questions that we haven't read are going to be in future episodes. There's going to be a bit of a change to the next 2 topics just because of stuff that's come through recently. Ooh. So keep guiding us. It's just beautiful. There's some exciting stuff coming that we'll announce next episode as well, where we'll go back to a part 1. And for all those people missing the movie critiques, it's coming back.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Looking forward to part 1 already. Because I love watching a movie midweek, Billy. Especially in the winter where we are here. It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Dr. Billy. A lot of work put in this week and on the whole topic. Guys, hope you enjoy it. Looking forward to the next episode and speak to you soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.